This is how I created the ultimate LEGO Star Wars thumbnail in Photoshop. The video only came out a few days ago, but it already has over 100,000 views. Here's how I made it. I started by importing all the images into Photoshop, then renaming every single one to something specific so I would actually remember which one that I'm editing. Then I used the quick selection tool to mask out the background of every single image. It took a long time. I cleaned them up with the paintbrush tool just to make sure that it looked perfect. I mean, not necessarily perfect, but good enough where it would not be noticed in the full thumbnail. The thing that made this a lot easier is I didn't have to be exactly precise on everything because thumbnails are so small, especially on some devices. So when I masked out some of these things, they'd have like some of the blue background or whatever on them. It doesn't really matter too much because no one's really gonna see it. However, toward the end, I did add a little bit more detail that not a lot of people would notice with how small the thumbnail is. This thumbnail has two sides. There's a dark side and a light side. I added a Death Star in the background of the dark side just because that's so iconic. I mean, how could I not? I did make a few adjustments in Camera Raw just because it didn't quite look right at first, but once I got it in Photoshop, I started adding some backgrounds. I started with black for the dark side and yellow for the light side. I mean, it's obviously gonna change. It doesn't look very good as of now. I started with Darth Vader leading the dark side, obviously, and Yoda leading the light side. I needed to balance out the left side and the right side, so I put an ATTE in the background of the light side part. Republic Studs gave me a lot of options with this photo, so it's kind of hard to choose the right one. I added in some stormtroopers on the left side and some text above. I changed the dark side text to red because that's a really Sith color. I mean, Darth Vader's lightsaber is red, and also red is just an evil color in general. I put some minifigs on the right side of the thumbnail and added in Luke just to see how he looked. I put a starry background on the left side of the thumbnail, but it honestly did not show up very well. I messed around with the rule of thirds and just kind of lined things up again. And I wanted to use Yavin as the right side of the thumbnail, but it just did not quite look right. So I ended up going with Tatooine instead. After finding the right image, I ended up aligning things again. Using a rule of thirds grid really does help, especially if you're a beginner like me. At this point, the major elements of the thumbnail were pretty much where they should be, so I started dragging in some background images. I started with a small squad of TIE fighters on the left and an X-Wing on the right side. At this point, Vader wasn't quite looking as defined as I wanted him to be, so I adjusted him manually with the curve feature. Look at this squiggly line on the right. Don't I look like a pro when I use it? Don't let that fool you though. I would still consider myself a beginner. I dragged in a new starry background, and this one looked a lot better. You can see the stars so much more clearly. Then it was time to add Vader's lightsaber. It's actually a little bit hard to get this right for some reason. It's probably because the lightsaber just casted a huge glow pretty much like all the way across the thumbnail. It probably did that because I had to resize it so much. Then I started working on Yoda's lightsaber. Yoda's lightsaber was held at such a weird angle, so I just ended up tilting him a little bit. That way the lightsaber wouldn't look all weird and slanted. Then I changed the hue, and oh my gosh, dude, that green glow is insane. Seeing these lightsabers come together made me really have a new perspective on the thumbnail. Just like every YouTuber, I added some vibrance to the thumbnail to make it pop. Then I added some shadows to the TIE fighters, and this added so much realism to the thumbnail, I can't even explain it. The stars weren't quite doing it for me on the left side of the thumbnail, so I ended up adding in a planet, specifically Yavin, for those of you nerds out there. When having this many elements in a thumbnail, you really need to categorize well, so I started organizing everything. I created a drop shadow for the X-Wing and relined Vader a little bit more. Then I played around with the right side of the thumbnail again. At this point, I was still pretty unsure if Luke or Yoda would be the one leading the right side of the thumbnail. Another classic LEGO YouTuber thing, the classic dividing line in the center. Everyone does that. Vader's lightsaber just looked a tad bit off, so I tried playing with that a little bit more. I used the same hue technique that I did with Yoda's lightsaber. It's a pretty simple technique, but I thought I'd explain it anyway. You may see the colors of the whole thumbnail change every once in a while, and that's because I forgot to apply a clipping mask. Those things are really important. There's the rule of thirds again. Just aligning things again, as usual. I kept playing with Vader's lightsaber, just really not knowing which one is best at this point. Then I started working on Luke's lightsaber, and this time I didn't have to adjust the hue because it was already blue. Lucky me. This next part was really fun. I started creating a glow on the laser part of the Death Star, which looked really sick. This is when the thumbnail started looking really realistic. I mean, for a thumbnail at least. I started adding reflections from the lightsabers onto Darth Vader. I just used the brush tool at a really low opacity velocity. Then I did the same thing with everything surrounding Luke's lightsaber. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't think people will really notice this too much. I mean, you've seen how small thumbnails appear on YouTube. It's pretty small. But looking closely at the thumbnail, especially at Mando, it looks sick. Then I worked on Yoda's lightsaber glow and put Luke in Yoda's position again. Let me know if you like Luke or Yoda leading the light side. I hopped into a call with Republic Studs and added some finishing touches, and here's the final results. This is actually not my main channel. This is my second channel, so make sure you check the subscribe button to see if you're subscribed. I haven't uploaded to this channel in like 2 years, so thank you so much for watching. Stay positive and have a great day.